Bert! Get him! Yeah! Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it is the 9th of November. So around here, all we're hearing is rifle shots because next Saturday our rifle season opens up, which means our grouse season closes down. I've already got a plan. I'm heading out of town on the 16th or the 17th. I'm going down south. I'll tell you all about that next week. But anyway, shout out to Craig, Matt, Ryan, and Dave. And the reason I don't do this very often, and because this thing doesn't happen very often. I'm in South Dakota a couple weeks ago, driving southbound on a gravel road, and here comes a truck northbound on the gravel road, and we kind of make sure there's enough room for both of us. And then all of a sudden there's an arm hanging out the window, and I'm thinking, you know what that looks like to me? That looks like somebody saying, I lost a dog, have you seen a dog? It was that kind of a, like, ooh, kind of an arm raise. Anyway, that was Craig, and I backed up, he backed up, we got window to window, and he says, hey, Ron. He says, is the dog that wouldn't die in the back of that truck? And I said, it is, as a matter of fact. And so we pulled off to the northbound side, tailgated, sat there and met some new friends. That's what I love about the bird hunting world, right? It's not like anything else. So anyway, it was nice to be flagged down. We killed a few minutes. We were going to run into town to get something to eat, so we had plenty of time. So my new friends Craig, Matt, Ryan, and Dave from Pennsylvania, hope to see you out there next year. And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have half the stuff on my list because they weren't the ones with the dogs. Yeah, crazy. But they went out there to have fun with their friends, shoot birds. In fact, I think I know somebody who might have went with them the other. Anyway, long story short, I can't tell you that I saw Onyx on their phone, but I know it was. And I don't know for a fact if they use HDP 20 to get a discount on the Elite. I don't know that. I will tell you they did not have a gunner kennel in their truck, but that made sense. That would be like no point in having a gunner kennel in your truck if you didn't have a dog. But I will tell you something about Gunner right now. There's cyber sales going on. They've got deals on everything from free straps with a kennel, kennel bundles, the homestead bed, the bowls, the food crate. I can't read it all. It'll take me more than my normal intro to read it all. Look, if you're ready for a Gunner, and there's some new stuff. I got Addison coming on pretty soon. You're not going to believe it. But anyway, like everything Gunner makes, it's quality. But that was not in their truck. The only thing I remember from that truck, it had a Pennsylvania license plate. There wasn't a darn item from W Supply. There might have been a Garmin Instinct watch on one of their wrists. I'll bet there was, just because it's a popular watch, even if you don't have a dog. They sadly didn't have any canine athlete in their truck. Again, no dog. I should have asked if they had a Mossberg shotgun. I'm going to say 1 in 4 chance somebody was carrying a Mossberg. If not, on the road that day, my Mossberg SA-20 was in the back seat, ready to go. I was full of Boss shells, copper. I was using copper 3.5s. I don't know if they were. I doubt it because these were like the loads I got in September before anybody could even buy them. And, of course, there was no Purina Pro Plan in a Gunner food crate because they had no dogs. Guys, you got to get a dog. One of you Fords got to show up next year with a dog. And I'll show you where to go. I didn't see any marsh wear, but it was a little chilly. Everybody had like an over jacket on. Of course, I'm not saying they didn't have like the Buxton shorts on or, like the Sullivan Sullivan, Jesus Christ, Ron. The Sullivan Tech hoodie. Not saying they didn't, but from everything I could ascertain, these poor guys need a lot of stuff. They really do. I didn't see a pair of Arxis boots on any of them, but it was dry that day. I don't think any of them were patrons, but then again, they just listened to the podcast, waved me down on the road, so we're brand new friends. There's hope. There's hope for you guys. So Craig, Ryan, Matt, Dave, I want you to join Patreon. You can come on there once a month, and we'll shoot the shit. You'll see all the fun we have on there. I want you to get yourself a pair of Arxis boots. I know if you're going to do some grouse hunting in Pennsylvania, you're going to need some rubber boots. I want you to go to Marshwear, use the promo code HDP15, get yourself some Marshwear. It's the most comfortable, cool. It's definitely outdoor clothing. It's you don't have to spend a fortune. And you don't have to look like an advertisement from Cabela's, right? You can, there's that happy medium. And if you guys become patrons, which I strongly suggest, you'll get a whopper of a discount code. The Marshwear discount code makes being a patron for any of you listening that aren't patrons. That discount code will pay for you over, and you make one order of a pair of pants, a jacket, a shacket, a puffy, a hoodie. One order, it'll pay for your Patreon for the whole year. Because it's only like $5 or $10 a month. I mean, come on. I mean, really. So anyway, you guys need to get some Marshwear next time I see you. I know there'll be pre and a pro plan in your truck because next year you'll have a dog. I know you're going to go to Boss Shot Shells and get some shells because you're like, wow, I gotta do that. If I'm going to come out here every year with my buddies all the way that many miles, they got to, they're adding at least, depending on what part of Pennsylvania you're from, they're adding at least 400 miles onto their trip that I do. You don't want to go out there undergunned or under-ammoed. One of them will have a Mossberg, even if I have to give one I'll lend them one just so they can see how well it works. They'll need some canine athlete for their dog. They're going to need Garmin around their dog's neck. They're going to need, what else? Well, we already mentioned it, the gunner kennel. You got to have I did see your truck and your outfit, guys. You're going to have to do a little bit of finagling or maybe I know you don't want to take 2 trucks out there. You had a lot of gear, but you didn't have all the important stuff. I mean, as far as I know, all you had was Onyx. But you know what? That's all you really need. There you go. That was a pretty smooth. They did have beer with them, but they didn't have any Watermark beer. But again, coming from Pennsylvania, sticking right onto I-80, they probably would not have found any at a local gas station or liquor store. But if you're in Southwest Michigan, you can find Watermark Brewery beers right at the gas station, liquor store. And if not, you want an experience, stop at Watermark. Go in there and see Justin. Ask Justin how his hunting season was. He was out in South Dakota the same time I was. I got to hook up with him. I'm enjoying a really good Hell's 5 lager. I think that was the name of it, Hell's 5. So good. Anyway, this episode is with Brandon Cerecke. And Brandon is the genius, the mastermind, the Frankenstein's doctor of Boss Shot Shells. He did the original Legacy, and you're going to hear the whole story. I mean, from regulations to federal regulations to, it's kind of a tutorial on the title of this episode should be, so you want to create your own non-tox ammunition? Well, we, the federal government, might not let you. But I guess you did a good job anyway. You'll enjoy this episode. If you shoot Boss, you'll really enjoy this episode. If you don't shoot Boss, you'll probably shoot it after you listen to this episode. Bang, bada bing, bada boom. I love you guys. I love you girls. I love you patrons more, especially the new ones from Pennsylvania.
All right, I've got the brains, the man behind Boss Ammunition, Brandon. Is that Cerecke? Is that right? Cerecke.
Cerecke.
Brandon's been on the show several times. Way back in the day, we came on a Zoom back in the day and had some fun. And as most people know, Boss has introduced a new ammunition. But Brandon, I want to kind of give you a little bit of the backstory. We know the Legacy brand, the copper-plated bismuth, but how did this all turn into this? Kind of give us a little ammunition industry rundown because.
Okay, so let's see here. So last year we finished the season about where we did, for the year, about where we were in 23.
Okay.
which there was a little contraction from, I'm sorry, in 24, there was contraction from 2023. And reason for that was like that that COVID pop and that post COVID change in consumer behavior where a lot of people were outdoors, they were out hunting, they were killing. That kind of fell off a little bit. Then as far as waterfowl, the harvest in 24 wasn't quite as good as it was the year before nationwide from the data we have.
Right.
Meanwhile, ammunition manufacturers, not us because we run relatively lean inventories, but some of the big boys kept running at those rates and that post-COVID era madness where we all remember in 20 and 21, you couldn't find any shotgun shells or
couldn't even
rifle.
find a 22 shell.
Yeah, everything was gone. So then everyone caught up, and there was that big push because you had to, number one, satisfy demand, which was insane. Then you had to refill all of the inventories.
Right.
Then after that, some of these manufacturers kept producing and producing and producing. And we carry less inventory now as a result of this whole thing because it's just, we got other issues we have to fight through. But, the big manufacturers, they're pumping out all this ammo and the economy is a little soft. Interest rates are up. People aren't shooting as much and ammo was overproduced. So what that translated into is a overall drop in demand for ammunition with price pressure going downward. Meanwhile, the tariffs, which is ultimately what, long answer to the question, tariffs ended up driving a lot of ammunition manufacturing costs up because a lot of the shot and components are sourced overseas.
Right.
Then you've got some inflation built in there. So what ultimately led to us having to get out of bismuth, we didn't get out of it. Bismuth dumped us.
Right. Right.
So in short, a majority of the world's bismuth is mined in Asia. You've got China is the massive, overwhelming leading producer, just like they are with tungsten. And you've got Korea, which is a big producer. Then you've got some in Japan and some down in Southeast Asia. Very little elsewhere in the world. I don't think the U.S. has mined any bismuth since either 1994 or 1997. There were some South American operations going. I think those wound down right around COVID. Mexico, Canada produces very, very, very little, if any. Not even enough to supply us.
Right. Right.
So at that time, we were told by people we were buying metal from that we were accounting for about 3% of all of North America's consumption of bismuth. And I think we were about half of what was being consumed in the United States.
Wow.
So we were going through a lot of metal.
Yeah.
And this would have been like February, end of February. Steve, you met Steve here.
Mm-hmm.
He messaged me and said that, hey man, the prices for bismuth. So let me back up. The way that we were always buying our bismuth is we would get allocations assigned to us where we would agree to so many loads of metal, which would last about 6 months or so.
Right.
And we would set the price, and then our suppliers would gather all the materials, hold it in stock for us, and then we'd schedule an order. It would get released to us. We would order semi-loads at a time. So he told me,
like a commodity type price, Brandon, like there's a set price or you get to bargain for that.
No. It's set, and it's even more rigid than like your primary metals like aluminum, copper, zinc, all those. This is being that it's mined by it's a minor metal, they call it. So it's a byproduct from tungsten and lead mining, right?
Okay.
So no one really targets bismuth. It just comes out of the ground with all the other stuff.
Right.
And because it's a relatively low demand, it's only used in like your low melt alloys, filaments for sprinkler systems. It's used in lead-free solders. It's alloyed in with some galvanizing, with zinc.
Mm-hmm.
It was used in lead-free brass alloys, anything that would come into contact with water. A handful of years ago, they did away with lead and brass. So it's very low consumption. And then Boss comes along and we start consuming tons of this metal.
He start eating it up.
Yeah. So they ended up, our metal supplier said, hey, things are getting kind of weird. Our price jumped like 30%. And then they said, we don't even know if we can get the metal at this price. So this is right before Trump announced those tariffs.
Right.
So prior to that, this would have been, if memory serves me, in January is when there was a second round of restrictions on the rare earths, because I think some of those China announced at the end of 2024. Then there was a second helping. Bismuth didn't make it. Then the trade war kind of clacks off. And then there were 2 loads that we were going to be having that should have been leaving China that were going to make their way to our distributor, make their way to us, and they didn't make the boat.
Oh,
so we were out that metal. About that same time, spot buying on the market for bismuth went to about 8 times what we were paying previously.
sounds like a drug market thing.
Yeah, right.
So
we ended up having, I think at that time we were able to get 6 of the 8 loads, which would have held us about 6 months. So we knew that we had a 6-month supply of metal. We did not have enough to manufacture all the product for the rest of the upcoming season.
Right.
So we're like, all right, we got a few months to retool. What can we do? So we kind of went back and looked at periodic table and looked at what's approved with Fish and Wildlife and all that, and said, hey, we were going to do, as a stopgap, we were going to do like a steel tungsten hybrid, because I wanted to be able to offer the same performance that we did with bismuth.
Right.
And we could get there with a steel tungsten hybrid. We looked at making our own tungsten. We looked at making our own copper using a powdered metal. We bought some equipment for it, and then tungsten market went crazy, just like bismuth did. So we're like, well, that's out. So copper it is. Then I realized that no matter how good of a process we could make with sintering powdered metal copper, we would only get at best about 95% of the density. So copper already runs at about 94% the density that our bismuth alloy did. So 6%, not that big of a deal, right?
Right.
We had some samples of some copper that we got our hands on, and we shot ballistic gel and shot patterns, and it was an equal to bismuth. We're like, this might be the ticket. Let's figure out how to make shot. So we were going to make the shot out of wire. And when we saw the price for wire was about 4 times the cost of what the metal was trading for on the LME market, we're like, damn it, what are we going to do?
Now you're back to a ridiculous amount of cost for the
Yep. So I said, well, fuck it, we're just going to make our own wire.
Of course.
So yeah, right. It should be easy.
Well, I want people to know, though, you have a lifelong business career in metallurgy. So
metal finish.
Yeah, metal finishing, but
Yeah.
metals, and
Yeah.
I mean, most people don't even know you can buy things in a rod or a roll or a coil.
Yeah.
They think it comes to everybody in an ingot,
Right. And I just know, like, people would complain about building costs, right? So like to wire a house, the Romex is, doubled over, and we were looking at like those kind of prices. No matter what distributor we went through to get copper wire, it wasn't going to happen. So we ordered a bunch of equipment, had an idea in our head on how we were going to make this stuff work. Equipment got ordered. None of it could be sourced in the United States because we don't make anything here hardly anymore. So then I ended up getting our deposits, and then got hit with like 50% tariffs on everything before it was going to ship.
Oh,
so the equipment ships. I think we get it unloaded probably beginning of August, just in time to find out that Trump issued a 50% copper tariff. Or like, you lose your metal supply, you order equipment to make America great again, you get hammered with tariffs, you get the equipment, and now your metal that you're going to use has been tariffed. Well, then Trump ended up updating that. It was only, and this helps, boss, it was only on copper materials or stuff that's already made. Copper ore coming in the United States was not tariffed. Only things like copper wire, wiring harnesses, anything with copper in it would be tariffed,
Yeah.
including shot. So we thought that was a good thing. And then we tried to figure out how to start making this pellet that, in my mind was like, oh, we're just going to do this, 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 and this with all these machines that we have. And it turned out to be the furthest thing from that. So meanwhile, our bismuth supply is like dwindling. It's like the gas tank is almost on E, the fuel light's on.
They're like, well, I better get something for next season, right? So
yeah. So we had announced they're working on a project. Didn't say what it was until the what show was it? It was Delta Waterfowl show, maybe middle of July.
Yeah.
And then away we go. And over the next 6 months or the next 6 weeks, we went from thinking that we were going to be done, like the company was going to be closed because we didn't have anything to sell. We weren't going to make this product. The pellets that we were shooting, we're only getting like 50% patterns at 40, and I would refuse to bring an inferior product to market. Right. So I had to hit that performance of legacy. So we ran down every single lane we could. I mean, it was arguments and stress and frustration and late nights and just terrible. And I said, you know what? Let's go back to what we first tried. Right? So you fail. You go back to what you originally failed at, but you learn a lot of stuff along the way. And, Steve and I were at one of these machines and we looked at each other. I said, holy shit, did you just see what I saw? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't believe it. Let's try this again. And before you know it, just like that, everything started coming together.
Wow.
So we loaded our first stuff, got the first stuff sent out. It was a pre-production run because it wasn't the prettiest stuff in the world, but it still hit that 70%. And over the next several weeks, the quality got better and better and better and better and better. So now we're at a point where we're still running really, really lean, but I've got a lot of equipment and we're kind of set up for it. So we, the past several years have been a real struggle here with, lawsuits and all kinds of shit going on. And then you get the debt that comes from trying to, keep lawyer bills paid and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Then you get the economy that kind of, goes south a little on you. Then you get your no metal supply, this, that, the other. I'm not bitching. We're going to be a way better company on the backside of this. It's just got to get through this year. And
it's a rough road to get to the hard top sometimes.
Yeah. So
you were on a washboard road for a while.
Well, no, it's never. I've had a lot of fun with it, but this has probably been the most stressful 3 years of my life. And I've gone through a lot of shit. Everyone has, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at like one thing after another, it's like, how much more can someone be tested and still come through this thing?
Sounds like something biblical.
Like Job.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going to throw some locusts on you.
It was a true test of faith, and I've got some real solid relationships, and you really realize like who's in your corner when you're at your worst.
Right.
And the team we have here, everyone that's in the buildings here has my back as I have theirs. And there's people, yourself included, and all the other guys that help spread the message and give us the coverage that we need to keep this thing going, have been extremely supportive. So again, we're going to get through it. It's been a really wild ride, but realizing what copper can do now, I'm not going to miss bismuth at all. I can honestly tell you that my personal stash of ammunition at home does not have any bismuth in it. I mean, it was kind of like the shoemaker's kids, the last to get shoes.
Right.
So I never kept a lot at my house anyway. I would just grab what I needed.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm kind of done with the bismuth thing. I mean, we've proven this thing with ballistic gel, and we're still getting comfortable, putting this stuff through its paces, and it really, really, really is. It's legit. It's legit. We've been able to bridge that gap, that lack of density. We've been able to make up for that and offer, like with War Chief. You're familiar with our War Chief line.
Yeah.
War Chief is even better than the previous War Chief, ballistically in the lab and some of the first preliminary tests. So,
I've listened to people back in the day when I heard people shooting copper rifle bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that was always in your head. That was like, that's a different product, but it's still a copper bullet. And I'm like, Well, how's that going to fly? And apparently it flies pretty damn good for a rifle bullet, right?
Well, yeah, it doesn't. And people are, what are they doing? I think they're moving it faster. It's a lighter projectile. Um, but what they're seeing is the same kind of thing that we've seen. The bullets don't fragment. And
Mhm.
lead, copper jacketed lead bullets in big game, that stuff fragments.
Right. A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of what it does create trauma. But if you lose too much of that bullet mass, it frags out and doesn't penetrate deep enough.
Right.
And they've got copper with these rifle bullets now, like pretty much dialed in that it's 100% stays together. It
Yeah.
mushrooms out, it transfers that energy, even though it's lighter. So what we did with bismuth is bismuth was 85, 90% the density of lead. By making the pellet round, by putting the copper on it, by using the wads that we had available to us, and then again with War Chief, we were able to make it perform better than lead.
Right.
So then you take something that's again 94% the density. So you keep on going down, 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 down. At what point are you like, well, this is just steel? But we benchmark our stuff against steel all the time, and it's still two shot sizes difference to get equal penetration. So we're making up for it pellet count, pellet energy.
Right.
But what we're seeing now is obviously no fragged out pellets on ducks and geese. And we're getting this occasional bird that if a bird gets shot like in the guts, they're going to fly like 50, 60 yards and then just dump. Which before, I think that is a bird that would be carrying that bismuth pellet or that steel shot out and not dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that penetration is so much better because we polish the shit out of these War Chief pellets now. And even the legacy pellets have a little more angularity to them, but they still are very smooth.
Yeah.
So
And
what we learned,
the lack of the friction is what you're talking, right? There's less
drag
friction,
reduction.
so it's
Yeah.
just going through like a sharper knife goes through.
Yeah. So what you want to do is, in a perfect world, every single bird you shoot at every single range you're going to shoot it at, the pellet should go all the way through the breast tissue, all the way through their rib cage, all the way through their vitals, and wind up against the skin in the back. That's like 100% transmission of energy, where you've not wasted it by blowing pellets through.
Yep.
You've kept that energy, created the trauma, and kept everything inside the bird. Well, that's not realistic, right? So what we're looking at now is how do those birds die? What's the wound channeling like? Are we seeing less wound channels with the same size shot with copper that we did with bismuth because of the deformation that bismuth gives? We're looking at different annealing characteristics of copper to see if we soften the pellet even more than it already is. Does that make any effect on trauma? Same thing too with like the legacy pellet, with it not being perfectly round. Are those slight inclusions creating trauma as that bullet tumbles through, or that the pellet tumbles through the object? We're going to go back to some high speed and we're that we gathered back in 22 to see what do the bismuth pellets do when they're flying through the air? Were they tumbling? Were they going straight? And we've got the data. I just haven't been able to retrieve it. We're going to do that again with copper.
So I got to ask. So you're talking about
Yeah.
one of the high speed cameras that can actually watch the motion of a pellet, like
We
slow it
gathered
down.
all that data in 2022. There was a guy named Joel Strickland that he ran the camera. We paid to rent it. He did a bunch of information on his YouTube channel, Surviving Duck Season. And there was a lot of other shit going on in the company at the time. So I kind of lost track of that. And then the next 3 years, it's kind of like been locked away. And just recently it came to my memory. So what I want to do is we're going to go back, do some more high speed, and kind of look at pellet behavior to see if there's anything else we can learn and then later implement into these little shotgun shells. So like, I know I'm going way too deep with this, but that's where my mind goes when we're going through like the engineering of most people think.
I've got deeper questions. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
do metallurgy or finishing, but being a millwright, I worked with metals my entire life and drilled through them. And so to me, it's like I want some people to understand the bismuth was always in a powdered form that was compressed to a pellet. Is that
No,
correct?
no. Ours was molten and drip.
Okay.
Yeah, we would make the alloy and then drip it just like lead shot.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Other people,
I thought maybe somebody else compressed it.
Yeah, Winchester was using, to my knowledge, they were using a sintered pellet, as was Federal before they bought Heavy Shot. So I don't know.
Mhm.
I've only seen the Winchester product when that came out, maybe 21,
Yeah.
and then Heavy Bismuth when that came out in 19. But other than that, it may be, I don't know if it's ignorance or if it's me not caring, but I don't buy other people's ammo to
Right.
tear it apart and look and see what other people do.
You're
I
just
We just do kind of do our own thing.
right. Yeah.
But we
And,
know that's not the same for all
no,
ammo
no,
companies.
there's a lot of reverse engineering in the manufacturing world.
I don't want to do that. I want
Right.
to It's more of a challenge to do it your
Right.
own way.
So in the beginning, you mentioned powdered copper.
Yep.
What's the process now? Like, is it molten? Is it wire? Could you chop up? I'm picturing, like a screw machine that pops out 3/8 bolts, right? It's like jump, jump,
Yeah.
jump, jump. Is
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
literally chomping out a pellet and
No.
then what are you doing? How do you make
No.
a pellet?
If I did that, I would have to have like 30 or 40 cold heading
Extruder.
presses.
Yeah.
Yeah, banging these out because just the scale and the quantity of pellets we have to produce would not
Right.
allow to that. So we're starting with raw copper and then we're shaping it and forming it in such a way that we can make a ball out of it. And I don't want to give up too much
No,
because
no, no, not a trade secret.
even if I told everyone how to do it, it'd probably take the next group of corporate engineers and catalog engineers 2 years to figure it out.
They wouldn't get approval for it anyway.
Well, the approval, that's the other good thing you brought that up.
Yeah.
The approval is kind of one of these things that it's government red tape, right?
Yeah.
So we already have the equipment going and everything and making copper. And then I look at the spec for Fish and Wildlife and it says that you need to have powder coating on it. I'm like, okay, well, that's no big deal. We'll just put a little powder coat on it and call it good. Well, one of my guys here at the shop who kind of oversees all of boss operations, I'm at the manufacturing plant most of the time. He
Right.
tells me, he says, hey, we got a problem, buddy. I said, what's that? He goes, this process is patented. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah. So if you look at the Fish and Wildlife spec, it says corrosion inhibited copper. There's like 14 approved materials.
Right.
And the spec at the header says, non-toxic, da 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 da. Non-toxic shot is defined as any material that does not cause illness or death in migratory birds. They
Okay.
use the Greek term for it or whatever it is, antidae or something like that. Okay, well, cool. So then I look at the purpose of it, and it basically says the same thing. Non-toxic shot regulations were implemented in 1990, phased in to limit the death of birds and illness in birds due to lead poisoning. Well, my investigation is a little segue here. Not even a segue. Let me just go down this alley. What I was told by people that have spent their careers working in this field was that the Fish and Wildlife and the lead ban didn't necessarily come from ducks dying, but from eagles that would ingest the shot from the ducks that
Right.
were wounded, and then the Audubon Society had something to do with it. Whether or not that's truthful or not, it makes total sense to me, but there was pressure being put on the Fish and Wildlife by way of the eagle, and the duck and the goose just got caught up in the middle of it.
Yeah,
Maybe
because
it's
and the same thing happened with the vulture or the condors in California with the lead fragments and the golden, they'll all eat carcasses as you start out with lead fragments, you don't keep that meat when you're doing a field dressing. Golden eagle comes down, starts eating all that meat and he's getting all that lead. So,
I've never shot big game. I've never shot a deer with a rifle. The straight wall cartridges my sons kill deer with, like, they are perfectly mushroomed, but
yeah,
you can see that in these elk and deer when you shoot them with a rifle. You can see the fragged out.
I don't think you can see it. I think it's probably I don't want to say microscopic, but it's detectable when they get these eagles in. Because I was at about 5 years ago. In fact, I was with Tyler. We went to a raptor aviary that takes in, sick raptors or injured raptors.
Mhm.
And that lead poisoning was a real big thing because in Wyoming, people are still using, lead-based bullets, and they do blood work on these eagles, especially the golden eagles there for some reason, and they're finding them that they are basically they're in almost like a state of drunkenness. I'm using the wrong word. From like their blood work shows an elevated lead, and there's nowhere else they could get it from except also from the people who shoot. Oh, what do those people do? The little ground squirrels, the
Prairie dogs.
prairie dogs, and they eat a lot of those prairie dogs, and those people just splat them, and they lay there anyway. So I don't think it's like chunks. I think it's almost microscopic, but it's in the meat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So back to this whole patent thing. So we look
Yeah.
at it, and I end up going through the regs and through the specs, and I realized the reason for the patent was because there was no testing device. Now, this is going to take me a minute to get through, and it's going to be stupid, but it's worth just kind of me talking about government red tape
Yeah.
and how there's so much bullshit that goes on with it. Okay. So, in order for a shot to be approved, it has to be called out. What is it called? What is it made of? And how do we detect it in a shotgun shell? Okay.
Mhm.
So with copper, corrosion inhibited copper has to be 99.9% copper coated with benzotriazole and fluorescent powder coating. All right, cool. The detection device says UV blacklight. Well, how do you shine a black light on a shotgun shell? It makes the powder glow, but what if you can't see inside it? All right, so we dig in to the Federal Register, and that's kind of like the meeting minutes for all these regulated industry or the governmental agencies and how they get things approved. So we find out that copper was originally submitted as a non-toxic back in 2013.
Okay.
And the original inventor of heavy shot, Dr. Daryl Amick, who I know, great guy, he did all this research and legwork under the guidance of some very, very, very smart scientists and biologists. And ultimately, everyone agreed in 2013 that that copper was indeed non-toxic. They did all the ligand studies and everything that was how much did the material degrade per year in an aquatic environment with the pH of this over
Right.
this depth of water, this many acres, so on, so on, so on. So they got the approval as copper being non-toxic, but the hangup was there's no detection method. So at the time they said, hey, why don't we just open up a shell and crimp it with a pair of pliers? And you can see that if it's lead, it's going to squish. If it's anything else, it's going to either stick to a magnet or you're going to be able to notice that there's no lead. It's not going to be gray
Right.
inside. Well, the Fish and Wildlife required that the test be non-invasive. So they kicked that back. So 3 more years go by, and Daryl comes up with the idea to try to get Fish and Wildlife to buy off on the idea of coating the pellet with powder coating that would fluoresce, but then putting it in a clear hull. So then when you hit it with a light, it's going to glow in the dark, right? Because anybody could take lead shot, heat it up, dip it in powder like you do with a jig head,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd pass a test. It's stupid. So then you look at column 3 where it says this UV light, and there's footnote number 2. There's 2 dots or 2 asterisks next to detection method. And if you go down on the bottom of the table, it says the information in this column is strictly informational, not regulatory.
Okay.
So you've got a non-toxic material that was approved to a spec that the detection method is not regulatory and it's only informational use only. So we ended up having a meeting with Fish and Wildlife, and we submitted this tester that would work. I could detect tungsten. We put this thing together: tungsten, copper, steel,
Mm-hmm.
lead, and bismuth. And there was some discrepancy with how they were reading the machine. But what ultimately led to this thing failing was the Fish and Wildlife put two shells in there. One of them made a pure tin shot, and one of them was a 410 2.5-inch mini slug. It had 3 miniature slugs inside this 410 shell, just a massive amount of lead.
Yeah.
I'm like, really?
That's,
Well, then
that's
the
the
scientist
barometer.
guy, yeah. First off, I said tin's not even available in the United States. It's not even on a spec as tin shot.
Right.
So we're not going to talk about that. And then this whole thing with the slug, like, we need to have some common sense. So I asked before we submitted the tester, I said, what are the criteria? What's the testing rubric? Can you share with me the policy that we need to follow to make sure that, because we can save everyone a lot of time if you just tell me what we need to do. Nothing exists on paper. It's all, we'll send what you got and we'll let you know if it's going to work or not.
Sounds like somebody's interpretation of a paper, of a thesis.
And mind you, the guys at Fish and Wildlife, they're all they're all good people. I have a lot of respect for what they're doing. At the same time, they're all in their roles as, employees of Fish and Wildlife Service that are, you have your law enforcement guy, you got your guy that oversees the specs, you got your guy in the lab. Well, the lab guy ends up holding up this X-ray handheld XRF machine. I'm like, well, there's the solution right there. Just give every one of your field agents an XRF handheld tester. He said these things are like $25,000 to $50,000. I'm like, yeah. The spec says it must be readily available. You can order those things on the internet and have them tomorrow. So it's readily available. So you can't say it's too expensive, right? So what they essentially want is for me to sell something for $200 that has the capability that has to perform at the level of a $200,000 or $25,000 machine. So then I talked to the law enforcement guy in the Zoom call and I said, hey, what is the criteria for giving someone a ticket if you think that they have an illegal shell? He said, what do you mean? I said, I restated it. He said, I'm not following you. I said, okay. I volunteer for the sheriff's department and, as a reserve deputy. Mm-hmm. And I go out and goof around with, some of my buddies that are full-time guys there, have a big time. And, you pull someone over because they're touching the yellow line or they're weaving, right?
Right.
You have reasonable suspicion to believe that they're driving, something's causing issues with their driving ability. You pull them over, you get out, you smell alcohol, right? You're still not charging them for a DUI.
Right.
You have them take a field sobriety test, they fail it, right? Stigmas, can't walk, the line, give them a PBT. They blow a 0.12 or whatever it is. They're still not charged yet. You're still doing an investigation, not until you have a certified test with a data master at the police station or blood or urine at the hospital. Can you charge someone for driving while intoxicated? Makes sense, right?
Right.
But how does that work? You find a shell in the field. It doesn't pass your test. What is step 2?
Yeah, what is it?
Right?
Yeah.
So that whole thing about not being able to open a shell, then they can open a shell. Cool. No problem. Well, then what they were saying to me is they wanted my tester to be a regulated device that would be able to be issued for a ticket, and a false reading would then trigger a ticketing event. I said, wait a minute, guys. The machinery now, the hotshot tester, which, by the way, most people don't even use in the field because they don't have them. The instruction manual clearly states that this is not, this is an investigative tool only. We're not going to go to court. It's not certified to be 100% accurate. Right. So I told him, I said, guys, you're making this really difficult for us because you want X-ray accuracy for $200 and you're holding us to a different set of standards. Yeah. Respectfully, I said this. So I told him, I'm like, guys, I'm up against a deadline here. I'm going to go bankrupt if I can't release this pellet or this shot. And my interpretation of the rules is as such. You approved it in 2013. It's on a list, and your detection method is reference only, not regulatory, and it's strictly informational.
Right.
And most field agents are going to crack open a shell if it comes in a question. So if someone ends up getting a ticket, it becomes incumbent on the ticketing party to prove that that shell is indeed toxic,
Right.
which, by the way, copper is not. So roundabout way, they created a spec that was then patented and locked up with intellectual property that no one could copy or duplicate or use. And then when you want to try to use the same metal with a detection method that's probably more reliable and accurate, save for slugs or 410 mini slugs,
Yeah.
then they don't want to approve it because it failed. So then I ended up getting a phone call several weeks back from someone who was the head, I think they call him chiefs. He was a chief for Fish and Wildlife Service over 2 states in the central United States. Okay. He calls the shop. Meg calls me, says, hey, there's a Fed that's calling, asking a bunch of questions. I don't know if he's fishing, but I think you got to call him. Cool, no problem. So I talked to this guy for 45 minutes. Great dude. He tells me who he is, tells me what his job responsibilities are, and he says, hey, man, duck season's coming up. We heard about this whole copper thing. Where are you at with it? Because I'm trying to get information from my superiors in the office, and none of them are answering their phone because the government shut down.
Oh,
So I have this dude on the phone for 45 minutes, and during that dialogue, he's like, listen, all of us officers have a lot of leeway to enforce the rules however we see fit. He doesn't use a hot shot machine, never comes out. He goes, if I have a question, I'm just going to crack open a shell and close it back up or replace it with a different shell. That's how we roll.
yeah.
Right. So he did have the information. He said, the way I understand is that this shot copper was approved in 2013. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, the hangup is I've got a testing device that they're failing me because it detects the mass amount of lead in one small area as being more conductive, because all it is a metal detector. It's a metal detector that we've calibrated so we can tell the difference between whatever the metals are. But when you put so much of a metal in that detector, it's going to register as being more conductive. So it's going to behave like copper or steel would.
Gotcha.
So anyway, he's like, all right, I understand. So he ends up calling me back. We have some dialogue. He said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, we're not going to write tickets. We see it as non-toxic. I'm going to let all my cohorts know. Calls me back, says, hey, man, I got 8 different regions of guys. We're all on board with this. We're going to see it. Our concern, and this is also the office people too, their concern was not factory ammo being used. It's the hand reloaders that are taking their Winchester AA's and putting other shot in that's causing confusion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I said, all right, back to this whole story. I said, all right, here's one. What if we certify the shells and we give a magnifying glass as the detection method so the officer can use that and read the printing on the shell? He goes, well, that's not acceptable. I said, that's no different than what makes your x-ray let you believe that when it says lead, it's lead. When it says tin, it's tin. When it says copper, it's copper. Because that was certified to a set of known standards.
Mhm.
If I certify the material inside there is corrosion-inhibited copper, that should be sufficient enough because it's good enough for your x-ray, should be good enough for your field agents.
Yeah.
Well, they don't like that.
God.
So the field fed then says, I let 8 of my people know. They're on board. He goes, we're going to issue a nationwide memo amongst all of us in the field
Wow.
tomorrow. I'm like, no way. He's like, yep. So tomorrow came and went. Then it was Saturday, Sunday. I call Monday. Nope, should be another couple days. So I call him Tuesday. It's not going to happen. I'm like, why? He goes, there's one person that's putting the brake on.
Like that one senator, right? That one representative. And
Yep. He goes, I can tell you this. whoever scratches a ticket is going to come out on the wrong side of history in this one, and we're not going to win it. So what long story short, what you have is a material that's been deemed non-toxic. Without the powder coating, it's been deemed non-toxic. They didn't add that powder coat requirement until after the study was completed, when they needed to find the detection method so they could test it in the field.
Test it. Jesus Christ.
So they certify the material. Now that they have the field tester, but then this goes back to 2006 is when these footnotes were added, that the testing device was not regulatory and strictly informational. So they've added to the spec, and people have come and gone through that agency. In my opinion, or my belief, is that they don't want to pick on the previous guy's work. Right. So they're going to write a spec for what works here for this instance, but not knowing that it carries no weight because it said that it was not regulatory and it's only informational, 19 years ago.
Jesus.
So far, we've only had a couple people on the internet. A lot of people have a personal vengeance against my company for other reasons, but only very, very, very few people are worried about, getting jammed up with it being confused with lead.
Yeah.
And the Fish and Wildlife requires the use of a hot shot or this or that. I would almost venture to say that there's no DNR guys that carry black lights with them.
No.
If there's any, and I will say this, there's one state in the country that has this right. And I hate to admit, but it's California. And California non-toxic laws basically state, and I'm paraphrasing, if there's any reasonable suspicion that you may be hunting with a lead-based projectile, the officer may take one for himself to verify. And if it is, you get jammed up. If it's not, no big deal. So what's the harm in that? But that applies because California is lead free for everything.
Right.
Now, there was one comment that was made multiple times, once over a phone call, where one of the guys at Fish and Wildlife did say, we realize that we need to change the spec. Something needs to be done about it.
Right.
So I don't think they were going to be trying to jam something unpopular up my ass, like taking away those footnotes.
Right.
I think they're going to relax that because there's more states that are going along with this, lead free, not just for waterfowl. I mean, right. Some of the states that you upland hunt, I guess there's no lead anyway on state land.
Right. Yeah. If it's state or federal land, I mean, that's to me, that's where, when I heard about BOSS, especially when I'm out west, I'm going from public to private, and most of that public says non-tox because of waterfowl.
Yep.
And it's like, well, put it this way. I had anecdotal. I got pulled, first time I ever pulled over in North Dakota. And this is just a compliment to a good common sense DNR officer. He said, "How'd you do today?" I said, "Oh, I got one." And we just started talking on the tailgate, and he's about my age, and he's just chatting away. I said, "Are you going to check my license or anything?" He goes, "Oh, you upland guys never really break the rules." But he says, "I probably should." And I show him my phone, my license, and he goes, "What are you shooting?" And I had the money bag of BOSS, and he goes, "Oh, you're shooting BOSS." So,
right.
I mean, that word's out there already. I don't know how
in 2018, when we started, there were guys up in Saginaw Bay that got checked, and the DNR didn't know what the hell it was.
Oh, yeah.
And what we were told is they put it in their hot shot tester, and it came back as lead.
Wow.
Well, all they had to do was the DNR popped the shell open, he cracked it with a pair of pliers, and sent them on their way.
Right.
That was like 18, maybe 19. By 2020, all those DNR guys said the same thing that your guy did. It's BOSS, we're good.
Yeah.
So our heart's in the right spot. We did tell the DNR or the Fish and Wildlife, like, hey, in our opinion, we're the world's largest manufacturer of strictly only non-toxic ammunition.
Yeah.
No one makes more than we do. We don't sell lead shot.
Right.
And our heart's in the right spot. We need you guys to work with us and come up with a solution that's going to work. Well, It sounds like I've got everybody on board except one guy.
Well, we'll get them. We'll get there eventually.
And I did tell the Fed, I said, listen, man, I'm like, I've worked too hard for this business. I got way too much on the line. I've got a lot of people that work here, and we're not going to let one person's interpretation of some really, really screwed up rules
Yeah.
that are non-regulatory
Right.
mess with our business.
Yeah.
He said, you keep that attitude and you're going to be just fine.
So not to exacerbate how exhausted you've been over the last 6, 8 months, or maybe 6, 8 years.
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
all these phone calls are amidst you're still in the shop half the time. Still, or were you loading shells because you knew it was the right thing to do and fighting this little fight on the side, or were these phone calls like, did you say, stop the press, guys, hang on, I got another phone?
No,
Okay.
never once, because I'm not going to, flippantly operate outside the law.
No.
It's just like Trump with his taxes. You're going to use the tax code to your advantage to minimize your exposure to taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use the words that they have written in their spec.
Just like you were filing your taxes.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to. So it's kind of like that whole thing with the regulatory versus informational and non-regulatory interpretation of what the test method is. If it's not regulatory and it's strictly informational, it also
it's not a regulation.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And that becomes, like I said, it becomes incumbent upon the Fish and Wildlife to prove that that pellet is not 99.9% copper and is not corrosion inhibited and is in fact toxic, which it's not. We follow everything to the letter to make sure, and we've done the tests to look at, how much does that material break down in the low pH water after a month, multiply that by 12, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been dealing with corrosion inhibitors and copper plating and stuff, probably 30 plus years of my life.
Right. Yeah.
I knew how to mix a copper plating bath, mixing cyanide and shit when I was like 12 or 13. Like I've done this my whole life. I know my way around. They should
have called you up when they started the first thing in the 90s, except you were a little young, maybe
I was a little bit young. I wasn't.
You're a little young to go in front of Congress at that point.
Yeah.
But you knew more about metal plating than they did at Congress.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we do have our congressman that's kind of been in the loop on this. And he's a customer of ours, and he's a waterfowl guy. Good. He's a two-way guy. And again, I don't want, my mission isn't to go to war or draw the ire of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Like, I know that they can make people's lives hell, especially when it comes to migratory waterfowl. At the same point, I don't want to expose my customers to anything, any ill will. But at the same time, we do have that, like everybody knows, it's on the website. Hey, man, Fish and Wildlife said copper was non-toxic in 2013.
Right.
We anticipate the formal approval. We thought it'd be done by now, but it is going to take pretty much an act of Congress or that one person to move off center or someone to approach this with just a little bit of common sense and be like, how likely is it that someone's going to be hunting with a 2.5-inch 410 self-defense round and try to kill geese with 3 pieces of lead and like 4 number 4 buckshot?
That shouldn't be anybody's concern right now.
No, and to make matters worse, that shell is a roll crimp, so you can look at the end, see the slug that's copper plated.
Yeah.
Scratch it with a knife, and it's soft and gray metal underneath there. That's allowed because you're not going. Oh, so here's one. Daryl Amick proposed taking a pin, like a nail, sticking it through the center of the crimp of a shotgun shell, removing it, and then testing that for lead. Nope, it's invasive. It has to be, you cannot open a shell.
Oh.
So I have yet to find a DNR or any Fed that said, "Yep, I'm going to scratch a ticket."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is the trials and tribulations. So let's get into the product a little bit now.
Yeah, yeah,
Now that
sure.
we can buy some of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, I, I actually I want to jump a little bit before we go back to copper. You also came out with some steel I used down in Virginia on dove season,
The unleaded,
unleaded.
kind of a fun box, right? It
I
looks
like
cool.
that. Unleaded. It was the perfect name, unleaded.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So we used, I kind of thought like gasoline, right? Like
right,
we kind of had this whole thing like premium unleaded, and then Federal sent us a nasty letter and said you can't use the word premium because we
premium.
own that on
Oh,
packaging and all that. We're like, okay, fine, whatever.
yeah.
So then it was just like this whole unleaded play. And
Huh.
one of the ads we shot had like this old, I forget what kind of truck was it, like an international, not an international. Yeah, maybe it was an international pickup truck. Obviously ran on leaded gas back in the 70s. It's
Right.
just cool. And we
Yeah.
put a little marketing blitz behind it. And, I didn't go out and shoot any doves with it, but I tested it on quail last winter down in Georgia. And I was able to rake pheasants and quail at like as far as I wanted to shoot with it.
Right. Right.
So when we baselined our steel target load against lead, and I had some old dudes that shoot a lot
Yeah,
at
I saw them
local,
on your. I watched that whole.
yeah, Rick and Mike.
Yeah.
They're not gonna bullshit me. They're not gonna lie. They're too old to play those games. And one guy liked it slow. Rick liked it a little faster. Rick won, so it runs 1250. And he'll tell you, he's like, I don't I can't tell the difference. If anything else, I think the brakes are a little bit harder with the steel than it is with the lead. Well, this is like major swimming upstream because target shooters don't want steel. They want their lead, their old guns, da 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 da.
Right.
But when that box of clay targets that you buy at Walmart or wherever it says handle with care, treat like eggs,
Right.
it doesn't take that much to break a clay target,
No.
right?
It doesn't.
So what we can trade is two things kill birds, two things kill clay targets. It's pellet energy and pattern density. So what I can do is I can trade pellet energy for more pellets in the pattern, so you have a higher probability of sending something through that's lethal.
Hmm.
So what we did was we basically took the target load, we modified a couple things, sped it up a little bit more, then we came up with unleaded. And again, we're not trying to be this anti-lead, lead's dead, lead's toxic, this. I mean, everyone knows that, whether they believe it or not, that's their own opinion.
Yeah.
Fact is, it's not the greatest for the environment. It's not the greatest for wildlife.
They took it
And
out.
it's not.
They took it out of paint and cars and everything. I mean, there's a reason
Yeah.
they took it all out of there.
And I've said this before on other podcasts, but like Dirk and I have jokingly said, like, like in the line of me doing that part-time law enforcement thing, like lead is for humans
Yeah.
when it comes to ammunition. So really, like, that's kind of my belief, like self-defense loads, that type of thing. You're going to want your lead to be able to dump the energy quick with a soft projectile.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to unleaded. The people that shot it, Dirk went down to Texas, gave a bunch of it out on a hunt that we were a part of with Jeff Stanfield and those guys. People loved it. No one said that they felt undergunned.
Right.
And for them, I haven't heard anyone on small game doves that are picking steel shot out of these dead birds.
Yeah.
What was your impression with it?
Well, I needed more doves. So,
Okay.
but the people when you give me a case of shells, I hand it out like Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, I got some boss here for you. I didn't say unleaded. They're like, oh, sweet. I'm not saying it was a placebo, but they didn't say like, oh, these didn't work good. I mean, everyone knows you have to practice with a shotgun and you have to do all them. I went to an English shooting instructor for off and on for a year when I was in Virginia. And he said, I can break any clay target with any choke, any shot. You've still got to aim right. If you aim right, that is the biggest takeaway. I mean, you have to put it there, but you also have to have a shell that doesn't have a pattern hole all over the place.
Correct.
And
Correct.
with that, I'm being sarcastic. You could probably make us an aluminum load that would kill birds. Might be a little, might be 15, 20 yards, but
right.
You could make that magic out of a lot of things.
Right. And like I said earlier, with we see that phenomenon of like birds getting hit and then dying like 50 yards outside of the decoy spread. They'll say, man, I just don't know if this has the energy because at 30 yards, it just flew away and then just randomly died. I said to one of my buddies, I'm like, Mike, go shoot a 30-yard pattern and tell me that bird with ballistic gel penetration substantially greater than 4 inches, that bird flew away.
Yeah.
With multiple pellet hits. I'm like, you hit the thing with probably one pellet at the very fringe of the pattern.
Right.
And the bird died. That would have been a bird that flew away carrying shot with bismuth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anecdotally too, when I was in Virginia, we shout out to the Flying Rabbit sporting clays course we went to for 10 years. So because you gave me a case of them, I said, I'm not getting a lot of doves. I shot them onto clay targets. I had zero difference. Like I usually shoot, I'm not bragging, but on a good day, I'll get about 38, 40 out of 50. That's about normal for me. Better than most of my friends, luckily, but not world class. Absolutely no difference. The same shots I could make, the crossers, incomers are always easy to me. But I mean, a crosser is always harder on the head of the shooter. I mean, it's like, boy, am I spraying BB, getting that heck of it? I had zero difference shooting those unleaded than I did leaded. Than I would do from a box of shells from the counter. So, I mean, that was in itself like, okay, there's another one
and that product, I mean, that exceeded our expectations. I mean, we're still selling that now. That turned out to be a pretty popular load for teal down south.
I'll bet.
And and again with the economy being softer than Fox News wants to talk about, there's been a lot of people that have the buying habits have changed this year significantly. That's why we're seeing like that unleaded shell going for some duck hunters. But oddly enough, our steel reserve, which I think is the best waterfowl steel load in the market, people don't want it. It's priced right there where everyone, it's below other people's premium steel. We call it like beer budget boss. That's kind of why it's like called steel reserve.
Right.
People don't want that. They want mainline product, but they just don't want to spend the money. and I, it really truly is like one of the best patterning shells in steel that I've ever seen. And it just so happened kind of accidentally. It was the first crack at us taking our steel reserve wad and throwing steel or our war chief wad and throwing steel shot in it, and it worked like better than anything else we've ever seen.
That's got to be one of those days that makes you smile at the end of the day.
Yeah, but then it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like no one wants it anyway.
Right. So. Well, you're still going to make some. You're going to keep it around.
Yeah. It's going to stay in production. Yeah.
I'll shoot the heck out of it. So when I came down, I'm not sure where you are on all the gauges right now, but you had, when I picked some shells up, you had the 3.5s and 20 and 12 gauge.
Yeah, we made our 2 3/4, 20 gauge stuff. We got 410, 28, all that stuff stocked up. Okay. This year, because of the process, we're only making 3s, 4s, and 5s.
Okay.
For next year, we are going to make the smaller pellets. We'll probably make 6s, 7s. We're probably going to go 1s and 2s as well. Wow. We could probably even go bigger. We could probably make like a double B or something like that, because there's no size restriction with our process now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So like with bismuth, we can only go like a number 1 to like a number 9. I'm not going to want to make like number 9 shot copper. That's just, we'll make a 7, maybe an 8.
If you're shooting 9 shot, I would just shoot the steel. I mean,
exactly.
A steel 8. I mean, why? Mm-hmm. I've had to, over the years, sure, I've had to go get a box of shells and, it's 9 shot, I always feel like it's a little too small,
Isn't it kind of crazy? Here we're talking about like using steel for small game.
Yeah.
We're like 30 years ago, you'd be saying, screw that. I'm not doing it ever.
Right.
But I think people give it an honest run, give it an unbiased view, shoot it, and tell me that it doesn't work just as good.
Right. Well, when you gave me the 3, now, what's the thought process? I got the 3.5 combo loads when I.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was more than we needed for sharptail, but I can tell you not a sharptail lived to tell because you hit them with either a 3 or a 5, and it's a down sharp tail, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that was your
Well, three, that's a lot.
what's that?
Number 3 shot.
Yeah, well, 3 shots pretty big.
Yeah.
I always think it in my head of the old lead, like 3 shot and lead, I would go duck hunting with, no problem.
Yeah. I think what you got was probably just what we had in stock at the time. Because
Yeah.
that was a couple weeks ago when we didn't
Oh,
really
that
have
was more than that. It was more than that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 is our number. We cater predominantly to the waterfowl hunter.
That's where I was
Our
going.
upland market is growing over time, for the pheasant guys. But the 3.5 thing came in. There's a lot of people that back in the 90s, I think Remington did like the stacked steel shot.
Mhm.
And every time we've ever patterned stuff like that, it just like it doesn't pattern that well. In 2019, we were asked by an outfitter that was going to be shooting everything from swans down to lessers and teal. They wanted to bring one shell into their lodge for everything. I'm like, man, swans, you need some bigger pellets, more energy, this and that. Like, what if I try making our number 5 shell, which was the number 1 most popular seller in 2018 when we launched, and adding 3s to it because I like odd numbers. I'm not an even number guy. So let's do 3 and 5. Well, what we noticed is it patterned a hell of a lot better than a number 4, and it had the same pellet count as number 4. And we couldn't figure it out, which ultimately led us to doing this high-speed photography thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found was the reason that it patterned tighter is because the number 3 pellets weren't putting massive dents in each other because it was sort of like buffered with the smaller pellets in number 5.
Yeah, they almost like fit better. Almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. They fit
Yeah.
denser, and at setback, you get smaller dents.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah, that's it.
That's all it was. So even though we don't need it with copper, we're still making the 3.5, and it's working just the same as the bismuth was. We're not going to say if all these guys have shot 3.5s for 6 years, we're not going to say, we don't make it anymore.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, I handed it out to a bunch of people. In fact, you'll be getting an order from a guy named Mike Darrow pretty soon.
Thank you.
Sometimes it was we were just in South Dakota, and we're hitting out all the different state lands and everything out there. And he says, "Hey, Ron, I heard you telling Jared I could grab some of those 3.5s." I said, "Yeah." And then he came because we all kind of split off and find our own spaces to hunt, and then come back and have a beer.
And what all you guys were going after? What?
He's just pheasants. Yeah.
Okay.
Wild pheasants, which not much difference except the fact that they fly way faster than a pen raised pheasant.
Yeah.
Their feathers aren't any stuffer, and their meat's not any denser, but
yeah,
they do fly faster. So you just got to be on the money. And Mike came back that day, and I said, "How those 3.5s work?" He says, "I'm ordering a case." So
what did Mike shoot before? Like, what was his normal go-to load?
I should have asked him. I think he had just some. I want to say it was just some 6-shot lead, which is a lot of people because the spots he was going. There's South Dakota's not real complicated, but there's some walking areas that you can use lead still. There's some walking areas you can't, and then there's waterfowl production areas, which is never,
Mhm.
So I think he had lead where he was going, but like on day 2, I gave him some of that, and he's like he was hitting birds. Now this is another. I'm digging on my own friends. My 2 friends from South Dakota, Lucas and Connor. They pull up a gun.
Is Connor the one that lives on Tyler's property?
No. This is South Dakota. That's
all right. I'm thinking North Dakota. Who's that?
Yeah, you're thinking of George and what's his name? You guys, Dirk just hunted with him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Connor and Lucas, you remember the old Gunsmoke opening of Gunsmoke, or the opening of the Rifleman? It was always like always the fastest, right?
Yeah.
These guys could be taking you to their best spot, and if they don't see you shouldering the gun, that bird's dead before you ever get the shoulder to the gun. So Mike is not a seasoned quick shot, and he was dropping the birds probably that's probably why he wasn't killing them with 6-shot lead, because he didn't have the pattern or the penetration. and he was knocking these pheasants down. He came back with a damn near a record. Well, there's no record pheasant, but you always look at the tail. So
Yeah, how many stripes and all that? Yeah.
it was a bird that survived a couple years out there, and he was probably he says, "Well, I guess I'll be buying some 3.5." So I pass them out like I pass them out
How,
like a
how,
junkie in a schoolyard.
how far out were those shots on the wild birds?
I took one in particular my last day, and it was at least 50 yards.
Oh, no kidding.
It was at least 50 yards. Now I didn't kill the bird. It knocked it down, and my dog, ran it down in a bean field and brought it back. But that's on me. A 50-yard shot with a going away bird is not a smart idea.
Hmm.
What you're going to hope for is to send one up its butt,
Yeah.
maybe make it sick later and die, or break a wing.
Yes.
And that's, pheasants. When the guys who know how to do pheasants, they shoot, they're killing these birds before the pheasant even gets up to speed.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
uh, but not everybody can shoot like that.
Were they hunting them over pointers or flushing dogs?
Flushing dogs.
Okay.
Now, the other guys had pointers, but I'll go on record. This is a whole nother rabbit hole. The guys that live in South Dakota, most of them hunt flushing dogs because when it does happen, it's close. You don't have a dog 200 yards up on point because no wild rooster is going to settle for that.
Hmm.
And our analogy is that the guy walking in the field with his Labrador Springer is akin to the farmer going out to feed the cows. Like the pheasant's like, oh, it's just that guy. There's no pointing dog running out there 200 yards going like, we're coming. We're coming.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if I lived there, I'd have a Springer and a Lab. That's what I would have. I would.
So, talking about dogs, you said in the email or whatever you had one of your dogs shut down. What happened?
Oh, she got hooked up on a fence post in a grass swale that had an old fence through it. And I never heard anything, never hear a peep out of this dog anyway. She's 7 years old, and I got a bunch of torn ligaments in my right knee, so I'm really struggling in tall grass. And I hear this thing and just and I can't. I'm trying to get into this grass. She finally gets off of it, and what we found out is I thought it was a barbed wire tear at first, which is real common. And she separated the skin on the back of her, what you call her rear armpit, and put a hole
Mm.
the size of a not quite a tennis ball.
Oh,
And it also, as that now we surmise from the vet that whether it was a farm implement or an old fence post, we'll never know. It also kind of ran up between the skin and the muscle.
the fascia.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, Itty's laying over there looking kind of sad, but she's on pain meds and she's on antibiotics. So that
You
was
said she ripped her stitches out.
oh yeah, of course. Well, when they're in the dog box, I keep dogs in a box that's size appropriate, and they don't have the ability to turn around and do all this stuff. Well, as soon as she got home,
First thing she did.
stitches were the first thing she took out. But I took her to the vet, and they said it'll close up on its own, just like a lot of wounds. Well, you think of a deer or anything that gets
Yeah. You know that super glue, you should get some of that. You can go on Amazon and get the medical grade for dog super glue.
Yeah. I've looked at it the other day, but
It's not like it's way better than super glue
Yeah,
in a
it's
cut
like
shot. I've
super-
used it before.
it's like Boss compared to other shot shells.
100%. Just like it.
Wow, is
Yeah.
that segue?
Yeah.
But your point, I got to get. In fact, I'm going to pick it up today when I go down to my other vet for my other dog, just a check or a set of shots. I got to pick up a collar for her so she can't, bend her
Yeah.
head. And I think I am going to super glue it up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. I forget what brand it was. 3M makes one for humans because what did I do? I ripped myself open last year with a knife or something, and they super glued it shut instead of stitching it. Where was it at? Yeah, it was right here in my hand. And as soon as they had that super glue, I'm like, I'm going to get some of that shit for myself just to have in case I do it again.
Yeah.
But you have to have a medical license to get it. But I found the stuff on Amazon that's like the veterinary grade version, which is good enough for a dog. It's good enough for me.
For me, good enough for my dog.
Yeah, and it stays flexible too. It doesn't get real brittle. It's almost dries like silicone caulk. It's some good shit, man.
Yeah, because the other stuff, regular super glue dries real hard and
It gets crispy and
yeah,
flakes.
yeah.
This stuff does not.
Um, Real quick, obviously you don't have you gotten any time to go duck hunting yet?
Yeah, I went for the first time last Saturday.
Did you?
Yeah, didn't we saw one black duck. Migration should be good this weekend. I'm gonna go out to camp this weekend.
All right.
Um, you could shoot. We could have shot at it. I told my buddy Dwayne, I'm like, hey, take it, and he didn't hear me. He's a little older. He's got the hearing
Yeah.
aid thing going on. But I like finishing my birds like right up in front.
Yeah.
I don't the whole passing shot thing. Yeah, that doesn't thrill me that much anymore. I like.
No,
I guess maybe I'm getting old.
that's desperation.
Yeah, I'm not that mad at him.
Right.
Yeah.
How did Dirk get a good field test out there in North Dakota? I listened to an episode that he wasn't on it, but they were talking about him being there.
Yeah, I think was Tilly on. Was Dwayne was on that one, right?
Yeah, I think Dwayne was well, yeah, Dwayne and Dirk, I think, went out there.
Okay. Yeah, Dwayne and Dirk did go out there. I thought Dwayne might have been on that.
Well, he might have been on Tyler's, but he wasn't on George's, and they're gonna be mad at me. I can't remember his name. I keep thinking it's Clem. It's not Clem. You froze up. All right, everybody. I'll do a little interim music while Brandon does a. I'm gonna.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dirk and Tilly were out there and they had a great time. Dwayne he came back ear to ear. He just absolutely loves it out there. And I wish I could have gone, but I'm too married to this thing keeping this company going here. So
Well, we
he had a good
appreciate
time.
it.
My son's a little pissed at me. He was almost in little tears last night because he said, I want to be able to go and do those hunts. I'm like, Landon, you got to get your shit together with school, because he homeschools.
Yeah.
But he's not the most diligent at getting his stuff done on time. I said, listen, man, you can go hunting all season long as you get your schoolwork done, dude. I can send you out with Dirk or Tilly. You can go to the best spots all over the country if you want. I'd love for you to be able to make it happen, but you got to get your shit together.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
all the feedback came back from the field. Everybody raved about it. And I tell people I do not have any respect for those that just want to blow sunshine up my ass. I want the real, honest feedback.
Right.
Because I don't want to be the guy that just has your friends telling you it's the best thing when it sucks, and then you make a whole pile of this stuff and no one wants it because it's garbage. And I also live with a generous degree of self-doubt.
So it's really important.
Yeah, it's really important, right? So you just got to make it work. And it's kind of one of those things, like we've got a really good history of producing high quality shit, and we're just going to keep at it. I'm not gonna let up. It's foot to the floor.
Well, I hope there's nothing changes down the road. And knowing you, Brandon, you're gonna keep tweaking this,
Yep.
um, because that's what you do. I didn't have time to get into how many thousand shells and how much ballistic gel you went through, but I guarantee it's probably a truckload.
It's a lot.
You
It's
probably
a lot.
wore
There
out
should be a lot of gel.
probably wore out a couple shotguns in the process.
They're starting to hang up a little bit, need to be cleaned. So yes, absolutely.
Brandon, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ron.
Everybody know that I'm as happy with the copper as I've been with the bismuth. I do gotta hit you up for some 16 gauge because I
Yep.
did have to shoot I had enough legacy, so I wasn't worried about that.
Yep.
I my buddy my buddy Roof, who you haven't met yet, you will one day. He calls me Ronnie Copper, and that's my nickname like forever, because I was always like the kid that didn't have enough money, and I was the kid that didn't have I was the bus boy when they were working in the shop, and so the reference was to pennies,
Yeah.
I'm Ronnie Copper, so now I can shoot copper.
Hell yeah. You're gonna like it better than bismuth, I guarantee it.
Well, it'll replace everything I've got. And
Yep.
Brandon, I can't thank you enough for what you
Yeah.
do for sportsmen.
Same.
And
Same. Thanks, Ron.
it's great. I will end this recording with a big thanks for all of us out there in the field to Boss Ammo.
All right.
So I want to wrap this up myself solo. Brandon's off the air now. And I will tell you, I've been wanting to get Brandon on the podcast since about July. And it just couldn't happen. Like he literally, like he just said a minute ago, I don't want people blowing sunshine up my ass. He has his own self-doubt about, just like, am I making the best I can make? I don't know how many hours a week that guy worked, but forego a lot so we could have what we have out in the field. So that's my audio testimonial The physical testimonial is the dead birds in my freezer. I love you guys. I love you girls. I love you patrons more. And well, you know what? I'll change it up. I love you guys. I love you girls. And I love both of you more that use Boss shot shells. See ya.